So as a wedding DJ, one of the things you've got to be thinking about is when are you going to be playing some of those big hits that the crowd is really going to get into. Now, years ago, our thought was always that we're going to start with some of the good, we call them kind of the B, you know, A are they going to guarantee these are the bangers that they refer to it. The A songs are going to work, and they work all the time. B songs work most of the time, and then C songs were songs that people liked, and sometimes they'd work, sometimes your mass crowd appeal was your A songs. And the idea back then was we'd start with maybe sniff into the A's for a second and then really hang in the B's with a drop of C early on because people were drinking and they were getting themselves wound up. And then after you were into the party about an hour and a half of a 4-hour dance, then things would go crazy and people would be ready. Then you'd be bringing out the big guns. That's changed. That isn't the way it works anymore. Today with weddings, once you get into it and you get things going, it becomes a situation where you're hitting a lot of the bangers. You're still wanting to mix in a variety of different things. You're going to be hitting many of the A's and the B's, but you're probably going to be hitting more of the A's to set up a B. You get a good A that sets up the B, and maybe even you can bring in a C quickly, but then you're back to an A. And you're hitting these hard, big bangers that people are just excited to hear, mainly because there aren't too many guests that stick around as long as they used to. We used to do weddings here in Minnesota where we would be commonly out to 1 a.m. It was like all the time. Then bars started, or some of the venues started saying, okay, we have a midnight shutdown. Now many of my venues that I'm working at have an 11 o'clock shutdown. I've got more weddings this summer where we're ending at 10 o'clock. That's just how the progression has come. So when we're starting these dances at 7 o'clock and such, well, they already know that their guests are probably not going to be sticking around that long because of it being a long day. There's this 8-hour rule from the time your ceremony starts till about 8 hours later. That's when the guests are going to be like, yeah, it's time to go. So if you're doing a 2 o'clock ceremony, 10 o'clock at night is 8 hours. We're kind of drilled in for an 8-hour day. 8-hour rule when it comes to weddings is a big thing. Now the drunk young people, they don't understand what an 8-hour rule is, and you never tell people about it. But it is a reality out there. If you've been doing weddings long enough, you see it. Where you get to that point, you can just start to see the room, like people, there's just this change over a lot of people, and they're like, oh, we're tired all of a sudden, and out the door they go. So people are realizing that the crowds aren't sticking around. They're here and they're ready to go. And if you can hit them with songs that are going to really touch them and get them excited and get them out there and have fun. Some of my best dances last year were an hour and a half long out of a 3 or 4 hour dance because they came out and we started with some of the bangers and we had the dance floor full. It was like the special dances and then boom, we had the dance floor full. And the crowd was involved and they were having a great time. We get 45 minutes to an hour into it, even though we were still working bangers and still hitting some of the big songs that they enjoyed, the attrition started. And people were like, I stuck around longer for this wedding than I have for a lot of weddings. Yeah, okay, I get that, but they were still planning to leave before, certainly before halfway through the dance. So, bangers, bigger songs at the beginning is probably much more acceptable today than it was a number of years ago. If you're one of these people who are holding those out for later in the night, you might be doing yourself a disservice because you're trying to put in fillers, and then the guests are leaving, and what's going to happen is that you're going to have your couple that have hired you, they're going to be like, you just couldn't get this floor moving. Well, part of it is because they wanted to have those big wedding songs that we'd all hate to play because we played them a million times. That's some of the stuff they wanted to hear, and we were trying to, maybe put those later, or we were trying to be, cool and say, oh, we're not going to do any of the traditional wedding stuff. We're going to prove that we can go the night without playing whatever the song is, enter song here. You got to hit the crowd. You got to hit songs that they all know, and they can have that group experience at the beginning of the night. Hit them with those bangers, those popular bangers, and you're going to find out you're going to be much more successful when it comes to having that party and having that dance floor full for those first hour and a half to 2 hours.